book launch and your interest in onset, and how did you come to it?
You know, some years ago, they approached me to write an autobiography. I said, no, I'm too young. But then, about 3 years ago, my father's memory started to fail, and I started to use a tape recorder to tape my parents about their childhood and all of us growing up, my brothers and I in Chennai, and all of these things. So suddenly the book started to come together. So then I decided to write it. I told HarperCollins I would write it. So we got together, and it's been a 2-year journey. It's been a wonderful journey.
So history and the news says that your family was brought up by your mother, okay?
Yes.
You 3 brothers.
Yes.
Anand, Vijay, as well as Ashok.
Yes.
Okay. How did you all enter into this tennis field first?
Well, that was my mother, really. She pushed us into the tennis field, and it was lucky that each of us did well. 3 brothers playing in Wimbledon, only time in the history of Wimbledon. So it was a wonderful feeling. And then from there, I went to Hollywood, and it's been a great 30 years in Hollywood.
Was it an accident, or else you purposely went into the Hollywood movie industry?
No, I had always dreamed about it here, going to Sapphire Theatre here and watching movies. I dreamed of going to Hollywood. So this was, a big move for me. And at first I knocked on a lot of doors, was rejected a lot, but then finally made the break with Double Impact. And then now it's, for 23 years, it's been a great career.
You still play tennis?
Tennis games at my house on Saturday is a very traditional tennis game with all of the stars come, a lot of the entertainment people come, Pierce Brosnan, Dustin Hoffman come and play. So tennis and then Indian food is traditional at my house.
Okay, what's the recent film which you are going to hear now?
The recent film, we just had a film that was the closing film at the Toronto Film Festival called Life of Crime, which will come out next year. And then after that, with Jennifer Aniston and Tim Robbins. After that, we have a movie called The Fall Guy, which is a big action film.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, we at HarperCollins India are very proud to have published Ashok Amirtraj's autobiography, aptly titled Advantage Hollywood. The book charts Ashok's remarkable journey from being a young aspiring tennis player in Chennai to his amazing success as a Hollywood producer. His hit films include Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, which earned $135 million worldwide, and Bringing Down the House, which went on to cross over $130 million at the box office just in the US, and many others including Bandits, Machete, and Premonition.
God, a loving Father, on this beautiful day, we raise our hearts and hands in gratitude to you for the creative power you have generously bestowed on each of us. We gratefully recognize that every human person has been specially handcrafted by you. Today we thank you for the wonderful gift of Ashok Amirtraj and his family. We prayerfully remember his parents, especially his mother, Mrs. Maggie Amirtraj, who has inspired her children, Vijay, Anand and Ashok, and instilled in them a sense of hope, and for gifting them with a daring dream to accomplish great things. On this day, as we release the autobiography of Ashok Amirtraj titled Advantage Hollywood, we thank you from the depths of our hearts for enabling him to optimize his gifts and talents. He is a reputed tennis player as well as a renowned Hollywood film producer who has more than 100 films to his credit. You exalted him and have blessed him with life-enriching experiences. May his presence and accomplishments inspire and ignite the passion to achieve in the hearts of many who encounter him in their lives. We gratefully remember and pray for all those who participate in his life.
we request His Excellency to present the first copy to Ms. Jennifer McIntyre.
Photographer. Sham.
All his life to youngsters. Now he's going to be an inspiration globally to everybody. We wish you well, Ashok, from the bottom of my heart, from my family, from my husband, from everyone, that this is it's going to be one more feather on your cap. Thank you, Ashok.
Governor Razaya, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of Chennai, good evening. It's a tremendous honor to have been invited by Ashok Amirtraj to participate in the rollout of his autobiography. I first speak...
Excellency, Consul General, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here this evening amongst so many old friends. When I was first approached to write my autobiography, I said no. The 50s are supposed to be the new 30s, so I think it's going to be another 30 or 40 years before I write my autobiography. But then an event occurred about 3 years ago. My father's memory was starting to fail, and as I made my trips to India, I used to take a little tape recorder and record my mom and dad and ask them some questions about their extraordinary lives and how they brought us up in India and so on. And from that came various questions about how, in fact, mom had managed to balance being a mother, being a wife, being an extraordinary businesswoman, and a very, very difficult taskmaster in tennis. Some of you in the audience may actually remember when at 6 a.m. every morning we would run along Stirling Road, but my mother would follow us in the car to make sure that we in fact ran the 4 miles. So it's definitely a difficult taskmaster. As the memories came rushing back, I decided that I would go ahead with the book. Writing this book has been a personal and emotional journey for me. I talk about moments in my life that were very difficult, the ups and downs, the insecurities of growing up with 2 older brothers who were better looking, at least at that time, more talented at that time, and taller even today. I remember when I was very young going to Sapphire Theatre here in Chennai. As the lights dimmed and the curtains parted, I waited with bated breath for the magic of the movies to take over and be transported into another world. I think I started dreaming of Hollywood in that theatre. I was lucky to have great parents and wonderful brothers who I traveled with in the 70s playing tennis, reaching the finals of the Wimbledon Juniors and winning the World Team Tennis Championships of Los Angeles. I talk about going to California for the first time, the palm trees, the beaches, the California girls, and of course Hollywood. I'd always dreamed of being a part of it. Well, I made the transition in 1980, and it wasn't quite what I imagined. For 5 years, I played in very bad tennis games with producers and directors and tried to network with them on their tennis courts. I mean, really bad tennis games. And banged my head against closed doors. And I remember having a number of conversations with my dear friend Sidney Poitier, who 2 decades earlier had broken down the wall between the races and had been the first black actor to overcome Hollywood. So 2 decades later in the 80s, it was no different for a young Indian tennis player to try to make it in those hallowed walls of Hollywood. The difficulties were not small, and for the first decade, it took me 5 years to make a movie. Right around the middle of that time, I was very lucky to work with Mr. Rajnikant on a little film called Bloodstone, a film well before its time, when there wasn't any talk of co-productions. I was honored that he would work with me in the movie. I then made a whole bunch of small films with HBO and a few other companies. And then in 1990, I was sitting at the Cannes Film Festival, and a young man comes running across the Carlton Terrace to me and says, "Ashok." So I look up, and there's this kid, and he said, "You know, I sent out 800 photographs in 1984, and you were the only guy who called me back." I didn't feel like telling him I had nothing to do. I was an out-of-work producer, but didn't feel like the right time. So he said, "Well, we have to make a movie together." So we ended up making this movie called Double Impact. His name was Jean-Claude Van Damme. Movie cost $11 million. It grossed over $100 million, and Van Damme was a movie star, and people started returning my calls. I start my book in 1990 and 91 because those were sort of very important years in my life. Double Impact movie opened in 91, and it was a true double impact because my mother found me Chitra that year. Now, she did throw in a few phrases like, you know, you're going to be on the shelf if you don't get married now. So, and then she said, you know, you're getting too old. I don't know which girl is going to look at you. So I didn't feel like telling her that I was having a pretty good life in California, but be that as it may, I was lucky to meet Chitra, and I got married in 91 and have two wonderful children. More importantly, the other part of my book is about his family and coming back to Chennai and spending time with my wonderful mom. One particular instance comes to mind, making impossible decisions. You know, in 2005, I went to the Cannes Film. No, I didn't. I had stars who were going to the Cannes Film Festival, Sandy Bullock and Nick Cage and Steve Martin, and I had to be there for those first 2 days. But it also happened to be my son's first Holy Communion. And one of the biggest mistakes of my life that I write about is when I missed my son's first Holy Communion. I went to the Cannes Film Festival, and never made that mistake again. But these are decisions we make and get over and move on from there, but never forget. The book talks a lot about family. It talks about religion. Thank you, Father, for the blessing, and a number of other things that have been very influential in my career. But I think overall, it's a pretty good read, if I say so myself. I hope many of you will read it. I hope some of you will like it. Those who do, please feel free to let me know. Those who don't let me know. I will say that my father would have enjoyed the book. He would have probably worn his T-shirt with the cover of the book on it and walked at Madras Club. He loved his T-shirts, and I'm sure he's looking down on us and enjoying the gathering. So I owe so much to my parents. My mom is here with us, my brothers, and of course the unconditional love and support of my wife and kids. So I'm very happy that all of you are here to share this very special moment with me, so thank you very much.